individual who has consistently supported the Iranian people and their organized resistance in recent years. His actions and calls for accountability have undeniably angered the Iranian mullahs. Please welcome the 70th Secretary of State of the United States, the Honorable Mike Pompeo.
Thank you so much. Bless you. Bless you all. Good afternoon. When I get that much applause before I speak, I get very nervous. It is so wonderful. Thank you. It's so wonderful. It is so wonderful to be back here today with so many friends at the Trump Hotel. So many people who came together and are committed to seeing a free Iran. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge the many people so far from here who are watching, taking risk to their own lives. Bless you all for what you do each and every day. I want to thank Generals Jones and Wesley for being here. Ambassador Joseph is here as well. So many other dignitaries too. You know, the last time I was with you all was on October 6th. Just 24 hours later, the Iranian regime conducted one of the most barbaric attacks in the last decades. In those very remarks on October 6th, I warned that continued appeasement of the regime would embolden it and would further it and cause terrible consequences for the people of Iran and for the region and the world. I couldn't have predicted precisely what happened that day, but we now all know what happened on October 7th. And months since that, the brutality and the violence, beyond so much understanding, all orchestrated and fueled by the regime in Tehran. We know that further appeasement will lead to further death and destruction. Today, I want to ask every person here, to consider some basic facts. These are indisputable. First, Tehran continues to portray an image of stability beside nationwide protests from 2017. You know this. The regime's goal is pretty simple. It is to project power throughout the region. It is to frighten the Gulf Arab states, the Israelis, everyone in the region. We all want just the opposite, and we're going to get it. Second, Tehran is orchestrating the conflicts we see in Israel today, in the Red Sea, where Americans were killed, and all across the region, because it wants the global situation, the global attention to be on it, on its proxies. It wants to distract us from its own internal weakness. This is something we all know. We must not let them do this. Third, Tehran wants to use its terror and mayhem spread by its proxies to get concessions from us, to put fear here in the United States and in its leadership. We should never give in to its demands or reward its brutality and its destruction. We cannot let that happen. Fourth, Tehran's great hope, indeed its prayer, is to portray what is happening in the region as a fight between Israel and the Palestinian people. This is a lie. We must meet it with the truth that the head of the snake of global terror lies in Tehran. The solution to today's conflict is not to negotiate. It is not to negotiate a two-state solution. It is to confront and destroy the regime in Tehran. The final fact I want you all to consider is that Tehran benefits from anybody who blames Israel, the Palestinian people, for the violence that we're seeing. We know, you know, who Hamas takes its orders from. We know, you know, where it gets its money and its guidance and its training. The epicenter of terror. It is highly unstable, rejected by its own people, and doomed to be overthrown. But they want to tell you that these proxies are just bad actors. We must watch a determined nation and a potent organized resistance continue to grow. It is now seasoned with decades of fighting against this malign dictatorship and the theocracy. I am confident that this resistance will only increase. May God bless it. You know, I've talked about Tehran as the head of the snake. I was mocked from time to time. It's okay. I think the world, frankly, though, is finally starting to recognize even more broadly, even more deeply, we should take cheer in that. We've seen it, right? From supporting proxies that vehemently oppose Middle East peace, to threatening ships and free trade in the Red Sea, to targeting American forces in the region using drones, and now colluding with rogue actors, bad dictators like Vladimir Putin, to kill people, innocent civilians in Ukraine. And so this recognition of Tehran as the epicenter, the head of the snake, can't come too soon. Since this past December, the regime's begun holding sham trials. You all have all seen it. There was one just this past week. We watched them continue to undermine the very spirit of the people that they are supposed to be supporting. We've seen them conduct trials in absentia that target members of the MEK, the main opposition movement. These men and women who live all across Europe, including in France and in Albania, know the truth. The regime wishes to create a phony legal precedent against them and have them extradited to Iran, or uses false claims to justify terror against them. I hope and I pray that countries like the United States and all across Europe will reject this for the sham that it is. You know, we've watched, too, the regime continue to target the resistance at Ashraf 3, a place that I had the privilege to visit not too long ago, where I met in a place with just simple people, dedicated people, noble men and women who have committed their entire lives to liberate their fellow countrymen. These remarkable, fun, smart, courageous individuals have, not surprisingly, become the target of the mullahs, who want very much to see the destruction of them and of their institutions. Indeed, many of the folks who I met with when I traveled there were survivors. They were witnesses of the 1988 massacre, whose main target and the majority of its victims were members of the MEK. To see the butcher of Tehran nominally in charge of that place today surely breaks so many hearts, including, I'm sure, yours, and I know mine. The United States, has to do everything it can. We have many tools. We have to ensure the continued safety and security of the people living at Ashraf 3, and I hope that our lawmakers and our leaders all across the political spectrum will take prompt and appropriate steps to help the government of Albania uphold all of the fundamental rights of the people that are living there, the residents of Ashraf 3, especially They have not given up their rights to the basics, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, much like we have in America. I pray that the United States will support the Albanian government in protecting the freedom of assembly and of expression for the people who are living there. You know, as the world continues to arise and wake up to the Iranian regime's malevolence, the situation inside of Iran has changed too. It's become more unstable and more dangerous. They are ever closer today to having a nuclear weapon, and indeed a nuclear weapons program, than they have ever been. We've watched the Iranian regime as it's resorted to an unprecedented level of repression. You all know that. You have friends, you have family who are living there. The recorded number of executions In 2023 alone, reached no less than 860, marking the highest figure in the past 8 years. These executions have also been on the rise in 2024. The pattern continues. This is a clear indication that the Iranian regime knows that it is weak, that it fears the very people that they are executing. This is all the while the nation of Iran has become more wealthy. This is while the Iranian regime has been illicitly selling oil and getting rewarded with billions of dollars using hostages for diplomacy. On March 1st, Iran held yet another sham election. You all watched it. This election for the Assembly of Experts once again denied the people of Iran the capacity to cast real votes in a meaningful way for the candidates that they preferred. So many decided not to participate in the election as a result of that. The good news is what we saw that day. What we saw that day was an echo of what we saw in 2022, an uprising where protesters all across Iran chanted down with the oppressor, be it the Shah or the supreme leader. I didn't get an opportunity at the beginning to congratulate Mrs. Madam Rajavi, and her movement for leading the boycotts of these elections. And having done so now for decades, yes, she should be deeply thanked for that. You and I, every American should know the history. We know the history that it was the MEK that boycotted December 1979 referendum and did not endorse that flawed constitution. And it did so despite becoming the main target of the ruling clergy's wrath, as a result of which it suffers to this day. Now, think about this. Now, decades later, this same nation rejected the clergy's rule and sought a free republic based on the fundamental separation of religion and state. I think everyone who speaks about this should just be clear. You won this victory by sticking to your principles and being ready to pay the price for it. Thank you for that. You all know what Iran is going to be, what it can be. Iran could be an incredibly rich, prosperous country. We know this. Where do its resources and riches go today? They fund terror. Billions of dollars are spent on Iranian proxy forces every year. The people of Iran know this too, not just those of us on the outside. Ever since the protests began back in 2017, the Iranian people have been chanting, neither Gaza nor Lebanon. I give my life for Iran. They yelled, leave Syria alone, think about us. Look, the people of Iran won't be fooled. You know this. The people of Iran won't be fooled by the mullahs. No matter what the regime says, no matter what it tells them, no matter how much pain it inflicts, the Iranian people know, because they are brave, and they are decent, and they are noble, especially the young people. They remain focused on the singular goal, bringing down the ruling theocracy and building a country that fulfills the promise of Iran, a nation that has historically prized freedom, and a people that still do, a nation that abhors tyranny, and a people that still do. It wants peaceful coexistence with its neighbors. This is what I pray for. This is what we all must continue to work for. When you translate that into a set of principles, you get precisely what Mrs. Rajavi has put in her 10-point plan for the future of Iran. The 10 points matter. The 10 points matter, and they're gaining tremendous steam, but we also should focus on the principle, which is the central feature, which is the future for a free and prosperous Iran. You know, I remember when I became Secretary of State. It seems like a long time ago now. I remember when I became Secretary of State, I found it interesting. I find it interesting that the mullahs constantly say there is no alternative to their regime, and yet spend $1 billion to defend against that very alternative. They spend all of their political capital, they spend all their time, all their resources, denying the alternative possibilities. They waged several rounds of major cyber attacks against Albania, asking that government to silence the main opposition. What is it they are afraid of if there's no alternative? You know this. Every single week, and largely as a matter of course, every single week, inside every single city in Iran, the regime directs its Friday prayers to its leaders to chant against a non-existent alternative. All this energy should encourage us. It should remind us that the only alternative is the resistance and the efforts to upend this evil regime. I'll end with a few thoughts. I want to encourage everyone here today and anyone watching, whether it's on a VPN in Isfahan or in Denver or in Paris or at Ashraf 3. Iran will be freed by its freedom fighters. You can feel it. You can feel it in this room here in Washington, D.C. The resistance movement is real, and it is a nightmare for the IRGC. Those of us with the capacity to impact the world and how it responds to the amazing work of these resistance fighters can't let them down. The Iranian regime wants to be rewarded for its terrorism. We can never do that. Hostage-taking, proxy wars, these are the tools of weak men. The strength lies with the Iranian people. Reward them, not the terrorists. I hear talk in global capitals that says if we treat the Iranian regime badly, that they will escalate their conflict with the rest of us. They suggest somehow that a determined effort to deter the regime from its terror and support the people of Iran will somehow create World War III. The evil we saw on October 7th against an innocent people in the desert of Israel should remove any idea from anyone's mind that weakness will generate peace. It is not possible. I remember the debates inside of our own administration when the risk of deterrence failing had become even more real. Our embassy, the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, was under attack. The regime in Iran had taken down a U.S. drone in international airspace. And we were contemplating how is it we are going to restore deterrence and, again, provide more support to the Iranian people. The central idea was that if we appeased them, somehow they might stop. The data suggested precisely the opposite. In the end, the decision by President Trump was to take a strike against the number 2 leader of Iran. And we sit here today with factual evidence that suggests it was that action that created more stability, more opportunity, more hope in that region than there had been in an awfully long time. So let's get it right. Let's get it right. Leaders in Europe, leaders in the West, let's get it right. The Iranian people have not asked for boots on the ground. They haven't asked for our young men and women to risk their lives. They have only asked us to support them so that they may do the right thing for their children and grandchildren, and they are prepared to risk their lives for that. butcher of Tehran fears us. The butcher of Tehran and his fellow mullahs know that paranoia is the right place for them to find themselves. For our efforts to create basic human rights for the people of Iran, to deliver basic freedoms for the people of Iran will not cease. They will not end. These freedom fighters on the ground inside of Iran will ultimately deliver an outcome, much like the freedom fighters did for the people of the United States of America now 250 years ago. And they will find themselves leaders of which the whole world will look 250 years after their hard work, their risk-taking, their efforts to deliver Iran as a better nation. I'm confident that this will happen. I do not know the day, but I know the day will arrive. This is the page. This is the page that must be turned. This is the page that will be turned by hard work from the people, the resistance inside of Iran. And it is the page that will be turned when people like you, who came out on this Saturday afternoon to be in community, to support that very effort, will deliver a free Iran. God bless you. God bless the resistance. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all.